This is a covenant you're making with your Savior and promising to live your life in accordance with his gospel and that he will bless you with his power. It changes it from just a set of rituals that you got to do to this is the next step you take in building that relationship with Jesus Christ. That is empowering and that's ennobling and that is exciting. It helps us to be excited about going to the temple.
After she got into the celestial room, if she wanted to go in the corner and cry because it was so weird, that was totally okay.
That sets up a bad expectation.
When you get to that point and you are going through the temple to receive your own endowment, looking at it as a gift and a privilege, endowment means gift. And you are going to be so blessed for the covenants you make as long as you keep them and you are true and faithful to your covenants.
When high desire matches high understanding of what that is, it makes for a miraculous, life-changing experience. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are doing helo dunking training. Basically, they put you in that little mock helicopter and then put you underwater and spin you around. It's been fun, but this week's video I'm super pumped about because it's about something I'm extremely passionate about. If you guys thought that Andrea Woodmansee was incredible, then I can't wait for you to meet her daughter. I had the privilege of going to their home in Arizona, sitting down with them at the table, and her daughter actually just went through and got her endowment. She is now on a mission, but I kind of asked them about what she did to prepare because she had an incredible experience. And I've talked to many people that have unfortunately not had the most positive experience their first time going through the temple. And so we have an awesome conversation. And what I ask is that you just send this to anyone that is preparing to serve a mission or even just preparing to get their endowment, because they give a lot of cool insights of things that'll help you out a ton. Also, quick wardrobe change, but thank you 1,000 million times to all those amazing, incredible people that have donated to the channel as Hayden and I have been on our little Marine Corps hiatus. It's only because of generous people like you that we're able to keep operations up and running and videos coming out weekly in our absence. And so thank you so much. Also, I've seen in the analytics that only about half of you that watch our videos are actually subscribed to the channel. So we're glad that you watch. We hope that you get something out of it. But before this video starts, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can get notified whenever we post new videos. But without further ado, Avery and Andrea Woodmansee. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an extremely special episode of The Stick of Joseph, and I have the privilege of being at the kitchen table of the Woodmansee family. I'm here with Andrea and her daughter. Introduce yourself.
I'm Avery. I'm 18 years old.
Awesome. Well, Avery, I'm only inserting myself into this conversation to keep this table from being translated because of so much righteousness between you two.
Hardly.
But also I feel very passionate about the subject in which we're going to cover today. And basically recently you went through the temple. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I had the opportunity to receive my endowment and it was an incredible experience.
That's awesome. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today, that incredible experience, because unfortunately, I've had many people that are close to me and that I've heard of have not a great experience their first time going through the temple. Have you had any friends or family members that you've heard have less of a positive experience?
Yeah, I know my mom for one.
Oh, really?
Experience.
Yeah.
How long ago was it that you went through the temple?
So it was a long time ago. It was like 1936.
Yeah.
No, it was 2002 and I was 20. I shouldn't give my age, but how old I was, because then you guys can figure it out.
In your 20s.
Yeah, I'm still in my 20s.
Were you preparing to go on a mission or get...
No, I was preparing to get married.
Okay.
My husband is actually a convert, and so he had joined the church, and we went through for the first time together, which was cool, but we weren't really prepared for what would take place in the temple or what the temple was even all about. It just, for me, it felt mostly like something I had to do in order to get married.
That's unfortunate. What was like temple prep like back then? There
was a class that was taught in our stake, and honestly, most of it went over my head. That could have been for a few reasons, but I felt like mostly what I was told was, the temple's great and you'll feel so much peace when you're in the temple and you'll feel joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly what I was told. My parents did try to give me a little bit additional information and pointed out that, there's more ritual there than we're used to in a regular church service, and it's just different. It's just a different way of worship. So I knew that going in, but that's about all I knew. And I had read a few books and stuff, but I felt like, and this is probably just my fault, that I wasn't soaking it up like a sponge, but I just felt like mostly what was told was quoting scriptures I already knew, but couldn't put into a temple context. And I just didn't see the bigger picture. So when I went through, everything was new. Everything was very unfamiliar. And I couldn't see the purpose of it. I didn't understand the deeper meaning of it. It just felt like kind of these arbitrary worship forms that I had to go through, and I didn't know why. And so I left what some people had told me would be this great spiritual experience. I left there just feeling like, what was that? I don't get it.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, there's a responsibility on the shoulders of the, one preparing to go through the temple to adequately prepare themselves. However, I've heard way too many times than I think should be happening that people went to the temple and had a similar experience where they were kind of bewildered by, a lot of stuff that was unfamiliar to them. So
right.
I'm curious, going from that first experience that you had in preparing your daughter to go through, like, what kind of steps did you take to help her have, I guess, maybe a better experience?
Yeah, well, certainly since my experience in the temple, and bewilderment's a good word, it drove me to dig deeper into what the temple was about and to discover more. And so that's become a passion of mine, is learning about the temple, learning about those covenants and how they really create this relationship for us with Jesus Christ. I'd been told, I think prior, when I did my temple prep, I'd been told that the temple's all about the plan of salvation. And I just pictured, the diagram that we draw on the chalkboard. And it felt like I didn't see that in there so much. It's like, where was the diagram? There wasn't a diagram.
Yeah.
And so it just impelled me to search deeper, which was a good outcome of that. But I think, here I am suddenly with this 18-year-old daughter, and maybe you should tell this part of the story why you wanted to go to the temple, but she's desiring to go to the temple. And I wish I could say, oh yeah, we sat down and had lessons about it or something. I don't think we did. It's just something that, because it's been a passion of mine and that I've studied so much and learned about, that I've shared bits and pieces here and there as we have ongoing conversations about that. And I think that's something important for parents to do, is to not feel like we have to contain gospel study to, like, it's a family home evening thing or it's like a family scripture study thing, but to where it's just an ongoing conversation and it's just part of the daily life.
I love that approach, because a lot of times people feel like they have to switch into this gospel mode. And even like some people have like a gospel voice that they can only speak about sacred things, like in that scenario.
Right.
But if we just make it a normal, natural thing that you feel comfortable to ask your mom questions all the time, that's incredible. And I admire you for digging deeper after having a less than positive experience, because I've found that a lot of times people have that less than positive experience the first time, and then it kind of deters them from digging deeper because they're like, this can't be understood.
For sure. And I mean, I experienced that to a certain extent, where after the first time, I didn't go back for a while. I don't know how long, but I just didn't have a desire to go back, because it seemed just arbitrary. It didn't have power and meaning for me at that point. So it was a few years, I think, before I really had that desire to study it more and then to share it with my children.
Yeah. And so tell us from your perspective, why was it that you were preparing and wanting to go, and how did that temple prep take place?
Yeah, so I've been preparing to serve a mission. I now have my mission call. I'm going to Hamburg, Germany.
Awesome.
And could not be more excited. But I knew following, getting my call, I needed to go through the temple. So I was kind of debating with my parents and just, with myself, kind of praying about it. Like, when should I go through the temple? Should I do it right after I get my call? Should I do it right before I leave? Because I've had friends that have done both. I've had friends that went through right after they got their call and then worked in the temple for a few months as an ordinance worker. And I had some friends that went through right before they left.
And you hadn't put your papers in at this point?
No, I hadn't put my papers in at this point. I was still waiting till the day I could put them in. But I was kind of debating, and then I was watching General Conference earlier this year, and there's a talk by Annette Davis.
Dennis.
David? Oh, Dennis. Annette Dennis. There's a talk by Annette Dennis. I don't remember what it's called, but she talked a lot about the temple and the covenants and wearing the priesthood garments. And she's just talking about how many blessings come from going to the temple and come from, having the privilege of wearing the garments and everything else that goes right along with that, and how symbolic and sacred it all is, how much it points us toward Jesus Christ. And that talk just like struck me, and it felt to me like an answer to my prayer, because I still wasn't sure when to go through. But I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many blessings, there's so much beauty in going to the temple. And so then it really got my mind going, and I was like, honestly, I could go through whenever. I'm 18, I'm out of high school. That's all that, you just have to be a worthy church member for at least a year, I think, right? And you have to be over 18 and graduated. You don't have to be preparing for a mission. You don't have to be preparing for marriage. You can go through whenever you feel is the best time for you. And so then I was like talking to my parents, and I was like, I could go through now. Like, why would I wait? There's no reason
I think that's been a big shift in maybe it's policy, but just in the culture, is that when I was that age, you only went through the temple if you were getting ready to go on a mission or get married. Those were the reasons why you would go through for the first time. And so I didn't get married till I was 24, so I went through then. But I think back to, what if I could have gone through when I was 18 and had more of an understanding? I think it would have been a richer experience. I could have been learning about it and participating in it for that much longer. So it's really cool to see her go because she wants to go to the temple, not because it's a means to something else.
Yeah, I love that, because it takes it away from just being a box check thing.
Exactly.
To an actual, looking forward to making a covenant with Heavenly Father.
Right.
Right. And that's what ultimately the shift was in my decision. It was originally just like, oh, I get my mission call, got to go through the temple. So before I leave. But then after hearing that talk and thinking a lot more about it, praying a lot more about it, talking to my parents, talking to my friends, it became something that wasn't just, right, I got to check off the box. It was something that I was like, I want to do this. I want to go to the temple. I want to make those covenants with the Lord, and I want to be able to have those blessings that come of it. So I talked to my bishop and had the interview and everything, and got that whole ball rolling. Talked to the stake president, got my temple recommend to be able to receive my endowment. And then I began preparing. I participated in my ward temple prep class, which was awesome. They just talked a lot about kind of what the covenants are, some of what happened.
And this was a difference too, is she had a poster of the 5 temple covenants printed out and hanging on her wall.
Wow.
When I went to the temple, I had no clue what any of the covenants were. So I think that's just a huge blessing to know, like, this is what I'm going to promise to do, and this the kind of person I'm going to promise to be, and you can start preparing for that and practicing that ahead of time.
Right. So I learned more about those covenants. I think if you don't know what you're going into covenanting, then it might catch you off guard, or, and none of them are like crazy or anything. Like, you can find them all online on the church's website. You can ask somebody, like, there's, 5 main covenants. But I think for me, like, learning what they were and what they meant and just how like special they are and what blessings come of them was really, really important to me. And I learned a lot about those covenants in my temple prep class. I also read some books on the temple and on the covenants and on keeping the covenants even after going to the temple and just all those things. And then like, I didn't want to go in blind, right? I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to know what was going to happen as much as I could. And so much of it is very, very sacred. But there's also so much that we can learn, right? Like we can learn about the temple clothing. There's a video about it on the church's website. Anyone can find it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, perfect. I know what the ceremonial clothing looks like. I'm not going to be like, oh, what is this veil? Like I know what it is, right? And knowing just what it looked like and what it looked like inside the temple. And I also just asked my mom so many questions, had so many great discussions with her.
Did she always have the answers, or?
She did, yeah.
Really?
She did. Like,
I don't know if they were the right answers though.
no, she, I just would randomly be like, hey mom, like, let's talk about this. And sometimes we would sit down and have a, good discussion for a while about either some particular aspect or just one random question. And then some days we'd just be walking through the kitchen and, oh, hey mom, what's this, by the way, or what happens here, or whatever. And she would answer my questions, as much as she possibly could. And I think that was super helpful, just knowing what it was all about and also what it meant. She's, obviously is so knowledgeable with the temple and the symbolism and everything else. And so I think also understanding the symbolism and the sacredness of a lot of those things in the temple was really important. It made it such a special experience. And I think I was able to really appreciate it a lot more than if I had just gone in and been like, oh, okay, well, all those boxes are checked now, I'm done.
Right.
I was able to really appreciate everything and like understand like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like these words that are being said and all these things, it really got me thinking and preparing and going in with that mindset of this is very sacred and so special. And it brought me so much closer to Christ. I think too, like some of my friends that had already gone before me said like, don't try to focus on every little thing that happens, because there's still stuff like, you can't share because it is sacred. They're like, don't focus on all those little things that are like, I guess, quote unquote, unexpected, or like you don't necessarily know exactly what it is beforehand. Like, don't focus on all those little things. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the spirit being there. Enjoy the feeling. Enjoy being surrounded by your family and friends. I had a lot of amazing family and friends that went with me and got to be part of that special experience. And I was able to just focus on the spirit and focus on the feeling and just be listening to what God needed me to hear. And it made it so special because I wasn't hyper fixated on every little thing.
Right.
I was just enjoying it and just thinking about how amazing, incredible it is. And so it made it really, really special.
And I think that is one of the amazing things about the temple ceremonies is that they are a really symbolism or symbol rich environment. And so there's so much for us to discover there and depths of meaning and understanding that we can find in the temple. But at the same time, going in without recognizing that can feel somewhat overwhelming because you just don't understand anything.
Right.
So I think going in, understanding the ultimate purpose of the temple and what those covenants ultimately are about, understand what you're going to be promising. It gives you something to focus on, a wider perspective, and then you can take those other symbols and fit those into that greater structure.
Right. But I'm so glad that I did so much to prepare because I do think that if I hadn't asked so many questions, hadn't, read all that stuff, watched the videos, listened to conference talks, all of those things, like there's so much information available to us if we use it. And I'm so glad that I did because I think if I hadn't, I would have been super confused and like, because it's different. It's not weird. It's not bad. It's not like any of those things. Like some of my friends are like, oh, my parents said it was really weird. And so then they go in thinking, oh, it's just super weird. Like it's not weird. It's different. It's higher. It's holier. It's more sacred. And it's very, very symbolic. And so I'm very grateful that I did a lot to prepare and I went in, I didn't go in blind, right? I knew a lot of what was going to happen, but ultimately I'm glad that I just prepared myself spiritually to be able to listen and to feel that spirit because that's what ultimately made it. So
and I think having some sense of the mechanics of it and, just some sense of what would be going on, even if you don't know what every symbol means, just understanding that kind of takes the pressure off. You're not having to wonder what's going to happen next. And so then you can focus on the spirit of what happens there.
Yeah. And even in the temple too, my mom got to be my escort, which was so special. I think if you have a great family member, a great friend to be your escort, then you're golden, because she was right there with me every step of the way. And even just little questions that popped up while we were at the temple. Like, I had an amazing ordinance worker that was there with us. She's a family friend, actually, so that made it super special.
We have the best temple matron ever.
And the temple matron is amazing. She is my favorite person ever in the whole wide world. I hope she watches this, because I love her so much. But she, after we got there was another girl that was also going through for her own endowment on the same day. And both of us girls and then our escorts, our moms, got to meet with the temple matron, and she just gave us some words of advice. She gave us some little mints. Like, it was so funny. She just whips out a can of mints. She's
Just
like,
unreasonable hospitality.
stay awake. So just all those little things, it just made it so special. But having my mom there with me was amazing, because
It was really amazing.
like, and I knew that she's so knowledgeable about the temple and everything. And I was like, I don't know. It was like a comfort, like a little comfort blanket. Just like, I know she's here with me. I'm not like on my own doing this. Like, I have my mom here. I have my family and friends waiting upstairs for me. Like, just having that community of support was also amazing. And I think even if you don't, though, like, even if you just have like your bishop that's got your back and your bishop that's supporting you through it, like, that's amazing. Just having that feeling of, oh yeah, someone's supporting me in this. And ultimately, obviously, Jesus Christ and God, they're right there with you. They are so excited for you to make these covenants with them. And I think just knowing that all those people are supporting you and cheering you on, and like, they've all done it. They know what's happening. They've all done endowment sessions before. It's not something that's new for them. And so just having those people that also know what's going on, and that they're kind of your little comfort to have there with you. Yeah.
That's incredible. That is amazing. Now you guys understand why I had to be at this table, so it didn't disappear into the sky. I love what you said about how, because you did so much preparation, it wasn't something weird or strange to you. And that, my wife had a really interesting experience, and I've shared this on the channel before, that she went to dinner with a family that we know, and it was right after their daughter got her endowment, and they sat down at dinner, and the mom said something like, I told we'll just say her name's McKaylee. I told McKaylee that after she got into the celestial room, if she wanted to go in the corner and cry because it was so weird, that was totally okay. And my wife,
that sets up a bad expectation,
right? And so I thank you so much, Andrea, for doing your due diligence and understanding the covenants that we make in the temple, because look at the product. Your daughter had an incredible experience, because maybe you didn't have all the perfect answers, but she could come to you and you had a knowledge of what was going to happen.
Well, and I think just having an understanding too of, like, this is a covenant you're making with your Savior, and promising to live your life in accordance with his gospel, and that he will bless you with his power. It changes it from just a set of rituals that you got to do to really, like, this is the next step you take in building that relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is empowering, and that's ennobling, and that is exciting. And so I think it helps us to be excited about going to the temple. I think so often too, when we do talk about the temple, we talk about it as, doing work for the dead. And I think to someone who's going through for the first time, that might be what they're familiar with if they go do baptisms and that kind of thing. And so we start to think the temple is just about the dead. And certainly it is, but it's also about the living and what our relationship with Jesus Christ looks like. And every time we go, we get to experience that again. And so I think creating that excitement around the temple and that excitement to make those covenants, instead of feeling like, oh, this is another religious thing I have to do. Like, no, this is something we get to be part of. And that's exciting.
Right. And I think that's another thing that made it so special and so exciting for me was, up until this point, I just gone and done baptisms for the dead. I've always been doing work for other people. And like, yes, I had my baptism, but it wasn't in the temple. It wasn't, it was just in the church building and it was amazing, but the time I was 8 years old, right? I didn't fully grasp it probably or think of it as such a special thing, more of like, yeah, I'm getting baptized. But it wasn't like that special. But going to the temple after doing so much work for the dead, I was able to go in with this mindset, like, this is for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am personally making these covenants with Christ, and I am getting to receive these gifts from him. And it made it so special just knowing, like, this is my day. Like, I'm doing this for me. I'm making these covenants with my Savior, Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making them, in proxy for other people. I'm making them for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, in everything you do, there is of your free will and choice. Those covenants are made of your own free will and choice. It even says it in the session. And so going in with having made that decision to make those covenants and made that decision to go,
Mm-hmm.
At that time in my life, just made it so special.
Yeah.
Because I was able to go into the mindset, like, I'm making these covenants for myself. Like, this is my choice. This is what I want to do. I want to have this
Mm-hmm.
special relationship with my Savior. I want to make these covenants.
Yeah. So I think a big part of it is just changing the way we talk about the temple to say, like, to tell someone, oh, it's weird, or you're not going to get it, or, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
We need to paint it as it actually is. So
Yeah. And what you just described, I loved it, because you'll probably see this on your mission as well, because I saw it as a young missionary in Portugal, where the converts in which I still talk to today that are firm in the faith, I look back to their teaching experience in their baptismal day, and those that truly did the work of preparation to understand what it was they were doing are still strong, because when taking upon yourself a sacred covenant and doing that ordinance, if you just have a strong desire to do it but a little understanding, like talking about baptism, it made for a good party for the ward to get together, and it's a good thing happening, right? But if that person doesn't really grasp what that is that they're doing,
they think they're getting drowned.
Exactly. So when high desire matches high understanding of what that is, it makes for a miraculous, life-changing experience.
Absolutely.
And I'm so happy. You can see it in your face that you had that experience.
Oh, the double.
And
in fact, it was so good that she's now an ordinance worker.
Oh,
so.
cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So shortly after going through, I was like, I want to work here. This is pretty cool. And also, like, I didn't understand everything perfectly my first time. Like, did I go unprepared? Yes. Did I understand everything the first time? Absolutely not.
It's okay. 20 years later, you'll still be discovering new things.
You'll never understand every little thing. But every session I did after that, I think I went the next week. I was like, I need to just keep going because I don't know everything. But every time I've gone, I've understood or seen so much more. I've seen something like, I didn't notice that the first time. Like, whoa, like something just like my mind gets blown every time I do a session. But because I wanted to have that deeper understanding of the ordinances and become more familiar with the temple and be surrounded by the spirit of the temple more, I decided I wanted to be an ordinance worker. So talk to my bishop, talk to my stake president, talk to the temple presidency. And then ever since then, I've been a Saturday night ordinance worker, which Saturday nights, that's a lot to give up, right? But I get to work with so many amazing people that are also there on Saturday nights working. And I've just learned so much more about the ordinances and the covenants and getting to be a part of those every day, and it's like as a worker and not just like as a patron, but as a worker, kind of be on both sides. Like I go do temple sessions as a patron, I do that proxy work, but I also get to be part of, I get to be an ordinance worker. I get to be part of that. I get to be helping other people have an amazing experience in the temple. And that's been so special to me. It's been just incredible to be surrounded by that spirit every week and to dedicate that time and to the Lord and to the other people there. And I've also seen so many incredible patrons. Like there's this lady that I've seen every Saturday night. She comes and does initiatories, and I just noticed it like a couple weeks in a row. I was like, this is the same lady that I've seen every week. So I was like, I wonder what her story is. She's a like little old lady. Like she's got to be pushing like 96 or something. Like she's up there with President Nelson.
Yeah.
And every time she has to move around, like it's obviously a physically hard for her to get around in the temple.
But she's there anyway.
And so I finally asked her one day, I was like, hey, like, do you come every Saturday? And she's like, I do. And she told me how her husband had passed away recently and that she's found comfort in the temple. And that was so inspiring to me. I'm like, instead of being at home and just being mournful of her husband passing, which I'm sure was so incredibly hard for her, you know, if they'd been married for who knows how many years. But instead, she's found comfort in doing temple work every day. She's so dedicated, and that's so inspiring to me. I've met so many amazing patrons that are so inspiring. Just like seeing their dedication to the Lord has like inspired mine and has increased my dedication and my faith in the Lord. Because, you know, I'm not just going to the temple, going through the motions. Like, I'm seeing so many other people that are also like amazing. And I think it's so like in any aspect of life, who you surround yourself with and who you associate with has a huge impact on you, right? And the decisions you make and the kind of person you are. And so getting to be surrounded by those dedicated, you know,
by the 96-year-old temple patrons.
But it's so inspiring, and it's just changed me, and it's helped me to see people as God sees them, like so much more. And just to feel the love, to see the love that they have for people that they don't know. They're doing the work for people that, you know, a lot of them don't know. Some of them, they're related very, very distantly. But a lot, like, they don't know them personally, right? And so seeing, like, people spend their time and their effort and their energy, even when it's super physically hard for them, you know, or they're super busy. They don't have a lot of time. Like my mom, right? Like, she's got 5 kids. She's super busy, but she still goes to the temple all the time. And it's such an inspiration to me. Just seeing how dedicated and how faithful those people are. It's just been amazing working there.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Well, in all of your preparation, what would you suggest to the people at home watching this that are kind of in that same spot, preparing to go to the temple? What are the biggest, like, the top things that made a difference for your experience, the preparation that you did?
I think, like, number one is just having a desire to go. Don't go just because you're about to get married or you're about to go on your mission. Like, don't do it to check off a box. Like, I mean,
and I think parents can help create that desire by going ourselves, showing that we enjoy going. This is a joyful thing. And there's nowhere else on earth that connects heaven and earth and is so filled with love like the temple. And I think if we convey that to our children, they start to have that desire.
Right. I think, parents being parents are a huge influence. And I think them encouraging and creating that environment for a desire to go to the temple is like so important. But yeah, I mean, and if that's all you have time to do, great. But squeeze in as much temple time as you have before you leave on your mission. Because a lot of missions, you don't go to the temple a whole lot, right? You're doing the work for the living, not the work for the dead in the temple. So you don't get to spend, and a lot of missions don't even have a temple in the mission. My mission doesn't. It has one announced, but it's not built yet. So I'm like so sad. I'm like, dang, I probably won't get to go to the temple a ton. But so I'm trying to spend a lot of time there. But have that desire, you know, pray about it, ponder about it, talk to your parents, talk to your leaders, your friends, you know, and just, even if you don't really like have that desire, you can build it. Right, by talking to other people and hearing their stories and hearing how the temple's blessed them. I think that's a really, really big thing, is just hearing people's personal experience and their testimonies. And I think for me, like, that was something I was like, I want that for myself, right? I want to have those experiences and I want to feel that spirit in my life. So that's something that's really big and important. And I think, just having that desire and going because you want to go, going because you want to make those covenants with Heavenly Father and deepen your relationship with Jesus Christ, not just because you're trying to check a box. And I think number 2, like, doing your research. Don't go in blind. Like, have an idea of what's going to happen.
But do the right research.
Make
sure you're using good sources.
Yes, use the best sources. Again, you can read books. You can listen to conference talks. Watch the videos on the church website about the temple. They have a lot of great resources on there. They talk about the ceremonial clothing, what happens in the endowment session. They talk about all those things. You can find all the videos and things on the church website. And then talking to your parents, your friends, your leaders, people that have been through already and have already had that experience. And then I think number 3, like, when you get to that point and you are going through the temple to receive your own endowment, looking at it as a gift and a privilege to be making those covenants, right? Endowment means gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and you are going to be so blessed for the covenants you make, right? As long as you keep them and you are true and faithful to your covenants, you will be so blessed. So seeing it that way and going in to enjoy the Spirit and with ears and with a heart open to what God needs you to hear while you are in his house, I think those are the main things that make it so special and so important.
You're awesome. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrew, you're amazing as well.
She's an amazing daughter. I'm blessed to have her.
I wish you luck on your mission. You're going to Germany, right?
Germany, yep.
So for all you Germans watching, take care of Sister Woodmansee, okay?
Please.
Get ready for the most righteous sister you've ever seen. But with that, please, please, please do the spiritual work necessary to prepare yourself to enter the house of the Lord, because us three can testify that when you do that, it makes for a formative, life-changing experience that you'll truly feel connected with your heavenly makers. And so with that, until next time, stay curious and hungry.